Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. As you can see, we are back at Sky. I'm back on the show today.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time, man. It's been a few, maybe even months.
Yeah.
Or at
You've
least
been in
a couple of
Portugal,
weeks.
you've been golfing.
I have been playing a lot of golf. Liking this little number. How are you, mate?
Thank you. Yes, this was for TV, trying to look a little bit smarter, a little bit more presentable this morning, although I did forget to change my shoes, so I have these very tatty Sambas on. But no, I'm good, thank you. Euros in full flow. Really, really enjoying the tournament, actually. I think it's been an amazing first week of which, but we won't be discussing that today because we are filming this on a Thursday morning at 5 to 11. It'll be out of date by the time Sunday comes around, so we've got some Premier League transfers.
I mean, it could be out of date even with the transfer news.
Yeah, true.
The rumours are
happening.
coming to life quickly, aren't they, over the last 7 days? But as you can see from the title, we're going to be suggesting transfers for clubs. We've been there, we've done it before, we're doing it again. Dukes, what club do you want to start with?
Well, I think we should probably point out that we're trying to aim for around a £30 million price tag.
Yeah.
Around that, I think that's very difficult for these top-end Premier League clubs. They will often end up having to
I'm not going to lie, I have not gone for £30 million price tags.
Right. Joe's dropping double that. We're looking at £100 million signings from Joe. I'll go for the more budget ones. I'm going to kick off with Man City, the champions. A solid season last year, not their best. Disappointing end to, obviously, with defeat to Eric Ten Hag's tricky Reds, which Joe hasn't shut up about ever since. But there are...
What can you do, man? What can you do?
It's a win's a win.
Trophy's a trophy, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. But there is a little bit of turnover in that squad this summer. Calvin Phillips feels almost certain to leave. Sergio Gomez is leaving. So, as ever with City, you're like, should they sign an out-and-out left-back? I think Gvardiol was working really well there by the end of last season, to be totally honest. So I think they should sign a more defensively minded midfielder to back up to Rodri. Now, that is a pretty thankless task because he's rarely injured.
It's impossible.
He makes such a difference to that side as well. So I looked quite young as this potential backup, maybe grow into that role, and someone that can also play as an 8 alongside him as well. And I'm going to suggest Angelo Stiller of Stuttgart. Joe is smiling, but if you...
I love it, Dukes, man. I love it. I come on this year after like a month or so not been here, and you throw a name at me that I'm like, do you know what? I've only heard him mentioned like 3 times in my footballing life.
He is, he's fairly niche, but actually Bundesliga fans were going crazy for him last year. He came through at Bayern Munich, then had to go to Hoffenheim to get regular game time, spent 2 years there, one of which was under Sebastian Hoeneß, who's now Stuttgart manager, then joined Stuttgart at the start of last season in a €5.5 million move. So really, really dead cheap. Signed a 4-year deal, so he does have 3 years left on that contract, of course. But he was a regular from the get-go. I think only 2 players played more minutes than him in Stuttgart's midfield. He plays as a deeper-lying sort of midfielder, but also contributed in terms of his passing range as well. He ended up with 5 assists. And actually, it's his passing that really pops. It's not so much his defensive work, but this is a guy that ranked 14th in Europe for passes completed. At the top of that, you're looking at Rodri, you're looking at Lewis Dunk, I think he's been up there for the last few years as well. But 14th for passes completed, and not just passing for the passes, passing sake, let's say. For passes into the final third, also ranked 13th. He's a very good dribbler in tight spaces. He is being linked with Barcelona. Hansi Flick's Barcelona.
Don't worry about that.
Which, I mean, if City are on the table and Barcelona are on the table, of course, City have a lot more freedom to act quickly. And I think they are probably the more attractive proposition to join right now. You know, Barcelona obviously a historically much bigger club. But if City's on the table, yeah, I think you go there. Although maybe the backup to Rodri wouldn't be what he's looking for. At Barcelona, he'd likely start because Oriol Romeo's move there didn't really come off at all. But this is a guy that can contribute in the final third, can contribute defensively, and I think would be happy for a backup role at City for next year and then challenge Kovacic, Nunez, Bernardo Silva, who might leave as well, in those 8 roles next year as well. So he's been linked with a move to Barcelona for €50 million, which is around £42 million. So I have slightly cheated, but I could see him being a clever pickup for City.
Got to say, I'm intrigued that you've gone for that role. I feel like of all the roles Manchester City potentially need this summer, you know, the backup 6 to Rodri would be slightly lower on the agenda.
Where are you? So Rodri gets injured. I mean, in September, he's out for 5 months. Who are you playing there? Kovacic?
Well, I think they make do. I think it's been proven with the Calvin Phillips deal that it doesn't really work having a classic backup in that spot. You know, maybe Rico Lewis comes in, fills a hole. Didn't feel like he progressed quite the rate I thought he would last season. Maybe
at least in the league.
That comes
in the Champions League.
Yeah, looked great in the Champions League. Maybe that comes with more minutes this season. But I still think Bernardo Silva will leave the club. I'm not convinced that they've filled that right wing slot perfectly, and I think that there are potential decisions to be made over Kevin De Bruyne's future. Obviously, Saudi Arabia are very interested in him. He is still one of the league's finest players, still puts up the best assist to minute ratio, chance created ratio of any player in the league, but his minutes are waning season on season. Last year had that horrendous time with injury, and if an 80 to 100 million pound offer comes through the door for Kevin De Bruyne, I can actually see them accepting it. And if that happens, then there is definitely going to be a signing made in the sort of attacking midfield floating role.
I hear you. I mean, they do have Foden. Alvarez can play there as well.
Alvarez might leave though, man.
Alvarez might leave as well. I know City do tend to spend the summers making it harder for them to retain the title, and then just invariably do anyway. I get what you're saying about De Bruyne. You know, at his age, £80 million plus is you got to accept that, I think. As good as he is, you know, especially with his injury record over the last few years. But they do have Foden, who can play that role, of course. You know, Oscar Bob can play century, can play on the right as well. He's seemingly got a big future as well.
Yeah.
I do worry about City's midfield recruitment last summer. I don't think they necessarily got it right. I think Matthijs Nunes and Kovacic are almost too similar a player. And I think they are a little bit short if Rodri gets injured. But at the same time, does Angelo Stieler want to go there and play a clear backup role at his age when he's got Champions League football for Stuttgart?
I was going to say.
It's probably not.
It feels a little bit like he's going to want to stay one more season at Stuttgart, especially given the project, Herner's staying, the fact that they are going to be playing Champions League football, and the fact that they finished above Bayern Munich. It's almost like the Bayer Leverkusen factor, isn't it? Where we'll get one more season out of these. We'll get one more season out of Hernes before he moves on. We'll get one more season out of some of these star players.
Yeah, and I mean, next summer, you know, Dortmund have struggled in central defensive midfield for a number of seasons now. Emre Can did okay there last year, but he probably is more of a box-to-box naturally. You know, it seems a little bit unclear whether Bayern Munich are going to get João Palhinha over the line. I think it looks quite likely, but maybe someone like RB Leipzig will be looking to upgrade their central midfield options as well, despite Xhava having a great year there. So maybe he'd want to stay in the Bundesliga, as you say, for one more year. I just think it's a profile worth looking at for City.
Shall we go on to the next slide?
Let's
mix up a bit, shall we? Should we do Tottenham Hotspur?
Nice.
Let's jump around the league rather than just staying at the top, because it's going to be a tumultuous summer for Tottenham, I think. They need to make some key additions. There are some big players in that squad that are potentially leaving. Seems like Yves Bissouma might well be moved on, and I was very, very tempted in this list to actually talk about Archie Gray, who I think would be a fantastic signing for Tottenham Hotspur. Obviously had a superb season last year in the Championship, predominantly playing as a right back, but also can play in that deeper line midfield role. We've seen what he's been able to do in the England youth setup, and I think, you know, Leeds fans will say they want 60 million or 50, 60 million for him. The fact that they didn't get promoted from the Championship, I think you will see players leave that club. I'm surprised to see Somerville still be there next season, and there's part of me that would be surprised to see Archie Gray still there. I think he ideally would like to stay, because obviously a huge Leeds United fan, huge Leeds family, you know, he's grown up through the academy, so he probably wants to stay. But, you know, if a 30-40 million pound bid came in from Tottenham for Archie Gray, I think it would maybe turn a couple of heads in the Leeds boardroom. I don't necessarily think it would get it done, but it would turn some heads. So I was very tempted to say Archie Gray here, but I actually think Spurs need a number 9 this summer.
Yes.
I am convinced they look far better in Ange Postecoglou's system when Son is playing on that left-hand side. I know that he scored loads of goals last season playing through the middle. You know, was it 17 Premier League goals last season? Fine, it's outstanding output. But as a team, as a functional unit, they worked better with Son on the left and Richarlison through the middle.
I'd agree with
that. The issue comes, I think, with Richarlison. Is he the future of Tottenham Hotspur? Is he the guy to play at number 9? Don't know. I think he's a good, solid squad player that can rotate in and out. Maybe you need another one of those. Maybe you need somebody else who can take the burden off Richarlison. They didn't replace Harry Kane last summer, so the striker market is where I've kind of entered. I was tempted by Girassi, but maybe too cheap for this.
Lined up by Dortmund as well, apparently.
Exactly. And I've actually come down on, again, I was also tempted by Maximilian Bayer.
Nice.
Who I think is a really astute pickup for someone, by the way. €30 million release clause. I think for his age, for his physical stature, his goal output this season, there should be definitely Premier League clubs interested in him. It's not going to be long before he's fully part of this Germany set. Obviously got the call up in March, didn't he, as well? But I'm actually going for Vitor Roque.
Oh, nice.
Out of Barcelona. I think Barcelona would be keen or fairly keen to accept an offer for Vitor Roque.
A full-on transfer or a loan?
I think maybe a loan with an option or an obligation to buy. I don't understand. I'd never understood this deal when they made it in the first place. They did not need a Vitor Roque style player. It was very clear they needed to spend that money on a Sergio Busquets replacement, in my opinion. They decided instead to kind of commit 60 million euros to Vitor Roque. Now that is split across 30 million euros fixed, 30 million euros an add-on, so it doesn't necessarily meet that 60 million euro fee given how he's performed, how he's played and how little game time he's had. But the fact he's had no game time really concerns me. The fact that his agent came out so publicly to kind of say what's going on with Barcelona, what's going on with Xavi, that worries me. The benefit for him is that Xavi's left the club.
Yeah.
Right?
Like
so Xavi's left the club. You know, does Hansi Flick come in and go, I actually like Vitor Roque, he could be my number 9 here? Or is it going to be more likely, in my opinion, that he just doubles down on Lewandowski? You know, Hansi Flick worked with Lewandowski in the past. I see very few minutes for Vitor Roque yet again this season. And if that's the case, I think it would be a smart decision for Barcelona to loan him out. And if that loan happens, Tottenham should be all over it. A loan with an option to buy. It worked with Timo Werner to an extent. You know, they've made that deal happen now, haven't they? To a level, because they've just reloaned him for another year. But if they can get Vitor Roque, you get a very young, hungry and talented Brazilian who has a huge ceiling. He's the youngest Brazilian player to feature for the men's senior team since Ronaldo Fenomeno.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Has that not been broken by Endrick?
Oh, has it subsequently been
Maybe,
broken?
maybe,
It might
I
well
don't
have
know.
been subsequently broken
But
by
he's
Endrick.
up there.
He set that record in 2023 though. It might well have subsequently been broken by Endrick actually, but at the time he was the youngest. He obviously crushed it in South America and got this big move on the back of sort of almost, you know, Vinicius Junior hype levels, where people were saying this could be the next Brazilian star. Barcelona moved very quickly in order to beat other teams to his signature, and it's just not worked there, has it? You know, Barcelona fans at one stage were kind of almost openly lambasting him. And I don't think that's fair, given his age and given his profile, how little time he's had in the league. But he almost got swept up in that, well, why are we spending money on this? Like, the financials behind the scenes aren't good enough to be spending money on 19-year-old Brazilians when we should be spending money on that. And I feel sorry for him in that regard, because it's not worked at Barcelona, and I think a fresh start at Tottenham Hotspur would be really good. He works extremely hard off the ball, as we saw when he was playing for Atletico Paranaense. I think he'd be perfect for an Ange system. Very young, adaptable, good goal-scoring numbers in Brazil, and wants a fresh start. Also, Tottenham have done this recently with the loan to option to buy, like I said, with Timo Werner. It's a business model that classically the Italians have used, and I think there is something to be said for Paratici still having an involvement in Tottenham. That kind of deal, we saw it with Bentancur, we saw it with Kulusevski, we saw it with Timo Werner, wouldn't surprise me. I think he would be a smart pickup if they could get a deal done for a loan with a 30-40 million option to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are reports that Barcelona still need to ease that wage bill once again.
Oh, we're going to come on to that.
So, yeah, it feels like they would be up for you know, getting some wages off the bill, potentially signing.
They have to.
So, yeah, that's a potential deal. Good news for Ferran Torres if that happens as well, because it feels like Rafinha's the player that they're looking to sell in that front line. He'd be probably the backup to Lewandowski next season if Vitor Roque was to leave. Let's go to Chelsea next. Now, let's talk about a done deal, actually, because it's an interesting one. Ian Maatsen to Aston Villa. I think that's a great pickup for Villa. I think the fee is maybe a little bit higher than I thought it would be, but given the fact Burnley were offering, I think, over £30 million last summer, I don't think it's a disaster given the season and particularly the last 6 months that he's had. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's mental. Absolutely mental. I think Villa are signing Chelsea's best left-back.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. What we saw from him at Borussia Dortmund was huge strides forward in his tactical know-how, right? You know, being able to invert into that defensive midfield position added a huge string to Borussia Dortmund's bows. But he's not only an inverted fullback, he can also play as a flying left-back. He can defend really well, as we've seen in the Championship. And there is something to be said, in my opinion, for higher-level Championship talents in recent years. You look at Adam Wharton, who performed to an excellent level in the Championship with Blackburn immediately. So easy, that adaptation period to Crystal Palace and then to England. Victor Gyökeres crushed it in the Championship,
Morgan
gone
Rogers.
out and just blitzed it in Portugal. Yeah, Morgan Rogers as well. And before that, Eze, Elise, Bowen. The list is quite long. Nathan Teller going to Leverkusen as well. I think that Ian Maatsen's learnings in the Championship that season with Burnley, where they were super dominant, like hyper dominant on the ball with Vincent Kompany, then going to Borussia Dortmund, being asked to play a slightly different role, being able to invert, and Borussia Dortmund fans absolutely loved him. Let's have it right, Borussia Dortmund wanted to make that deal permanent. They were desperate to sign Ian Maatsen, they just don't have the financial situation to make that happen. Aston Villa being able to compete and take the same players as Borussia Dortmund, being able to compete and take some of Chelsea's best young players should be heralded. I love this move for a number of reasons. I think Luca Dean and Moreno haven't
off,
hit the legs. They haven't hit the heights that, at one stage we thought they would. I mean, Moreno's first season, we were like,
First half, it was amazing.
First half of season, we were like, they've signed serious
was okay last
here.
year, but I think the issue with him is on massive wages, I think.
And also, Matsson's better than both of them, I think, right now. And he's, 22? Gives him plenty of room to develop, gives Emery another string to his bow, because we've seen how he likes to set up with Ezri Konsa almost as this right back who can kind of come into a back three, let the left back push on a little bit more, or invert now, you'd imagine, with Ian Maatsen. This is just such smart business, and I think it's a classic Monchi deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact he's got Champions League experience in that club, haven't played in the Champions League before, they've of course played in the European Cup, I think that could be quite important as well. But from a Chelsea perspective this summer, there's a few different areas that you probably look at. I mean, Gallagher might leave, but Lavia didn't play any football last year. Maybe he'd pick up some of the minutes from Gallagher. I think they've got a potential issue at centre-back with Thiago Silva leaving, although they have brought in Tosin.
They've got 100 centre-backs, mate.
I just don't think any of them are... Well, if Wesley Fofana was fully fit, which I can't rely on, then I just struggle to see a really top centre-back that they've currently got on their list.
Badiashile, Disasi, Tosin,
I mean, Colwell's got a
Fofana.
big future, but I thought he was quite underwhelming last year.
Alfie Gilchrist can play there. I think it's a bit... You can't have more than 5 senior centre-backs.
Exactly, so I'm not going there. They're looking at a right winger. It feels like Michael Olise. That could well happen, although there is talks of an extension with Crystal Palace. So they are exploring deals for strikers, and that's where I thought was the most interesting one to talk about, because John Duran being linked from Aston Villa. I think both of the moves they're being linked with, and Samu Omaridian as well, that's a clear sign that they are favouring Nicholas Jackson next year as their starting number 9. They are very much development strikers, the two they're being linked at, to the same extent that Nicholas Jackson was when he signed from Villarreal. So I think it's an amazing show of intent, or show of belief in Nicholas Jackson. There were reports, I don't know the quality of the reports, but there were some reports that Nicholas Jackson was a little bit unsettled by Pochettino's departure. I mean, he
did love him, didn't he?
He went big on
Instagram.
Went huge on Instagram. So that's potentially one to keep an eye on, but Chelsea will want to keep hold of Nicholas Jackson for sure. In terms of Omaridian, I think I'm pronouncing that right.
I think you are.
I think it's an interesting move. He's 6'4". It's absolutely rapid. I was watching some highlights of him yesterday, because he's a player that I didn't actually pick up on too much when he was at Alaves last year on loan from Atletico Madrid. But I think he scored 8 goals in the league. That's a reasonable return. He looks like he's got a lot of raw ingredients, but the first touch is inconsistent. Very much a project player. And Alaves played a completely different style of football to Chelsea as well. They were lowest for possession. They were right up there for long balls completed. It's just a huge ask to get him to come into Chelsea and hit the ground running and be able to perform back up to Nicholas Jackson. So, yeah, I think
that's... Is that who you're suggesting?
No. I went somewhere else. And this is a bit of a wild card one. But I think there's a chance for someone to sign Yusufa Moukoko this summer, at least on loan.
Wow.
He didn't get a lot of football last year under Edin Terzic. It feel like he much favoured Füllkrug or Sebastian Haller. Again, Sebastian Haller didn't get a lot of football as well. But Moukoku's now being linked with Wolves on loan. And it feels like he's ready for more regular football. He's 19 now. He's showing glimpses. Would he get that at Chelsea, man? No, probably not. But I think he'd managed to put himself in the shop window enough. And also, he's a very different style of footballer than Nicholas Jackson, who's going to run the channels really well, who's going to be, effective in build-up, who's going to harass, who's going to harry. Like, Moukoko is a box operator, an amazingly powerful shot on him. And I think he's got a huge future. You look at the amount of goals he scored for Dortmund's I think it was under 19 side. I think it was over like 90 in 50 games or something. He was absolutely remarkable. Hasn't been given the opportunity by Dortmund to kick on. It's difficult when you're competing with one of Germany's star number 9s. Füllkrug has been pretty solid for Dortmund. So I think there's an opportunity for Chelsea to look at someone there who's got more experience than Omaridian and probably more star quality than both of them at the moment. Although I do like some of the ingredients that Duran's got to offer as well. So that is potentially one for Chelsea to look at. If he's open to going to Wolves, I think he'd be very much open to going to Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, when did he sign that new contract? Because it came to a point where he was expected to leave on a free transfer, didn't he?
He's got 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah, it came to a point, it must have been an extension he signed then, because it did come to a point where it was like, oh, he's going to leave, and he ended up staying, and I wonder whether that was the best decision.
He's only valued, according to Transfermarkt, which are a bit loose with their valuations, at 22 million euros as well. So would Dortmund accept £30 million? Maybe.
Potentially. Should we carry on?
Yeah.
Do Manchester United?
Go for it.
Okay. This is where I start to go over budget. We talked about £30 million. I did kind of forget about that, and I went more for value for money.
Cool.
So these are like players that I think are still good value for money, despite the fact they aren't the £30 limit we went for. And I think for Manchester United, good value for money this summer is Matthijs de Ligt. I think Manchester United need a centre-back. It's very clear Man United are going to sign a centre-back with Varane leaving. You will have seen Jim Ratcliffe's quotes by now about Jean-Claire Todibo. Manchester United wanted to sign him apparently, or made sort of steps towards making that happen. And obviously it was blocked by UEFA because of the two-club ruling, where Ineos also own Nice, and they're both in the same competition, so you can't sell between each other. If that's the case, it looks like United are trying to sign a right-sided centre-back. And if we're being honest, it's probably going to be Jarrad Branthwaite. And I know he's a left-sided centre-back. He's left-footed. But United really like Jarrad Branthwaite.
Do you mind the fact that he'd probably be playing alongside Lisandro Martinez, two left-footers?
No, I don't. But, I mean, I'm not the manager of Manchester United. Erik Ten Hag might well. I think what they are planning for is that Lisandro Martinez's fitness record is patchy, especially over the last 18 months. It's been non-existent. So they're really probably slightly concerned about whether or not he can play 60 games a season. And without him in the squad, you have no left-footed centre-backs. You also, with Branthwaite, get a player who can play as a right-sided centre-back, as he proved at PSV, under Ruud van Nistelrooy, who utilised him there. You also kind of just get the cream of the crop in terms of young English centre-backs. Yeah. You know, 6'4", extremely fast, massive ability to cover open spaces and play in a high line. Just an all-round sensational defender, really good with the ball at his feet. So United,
and potentially a cut price fee as well.
Well,
we'll see.
TBC, we'll see. And I think that's the reason I haven't said Jarrad Branthwaite. I don't know whether Everton will give us a cut price fee. Don't know whether a reason they would. You know, according to David Ornstein, PSR issues aren't as tight as people expect at Everton. And if that's the case, there's no reason for them to do that. He's under a long-term contract. They should and have every right to hold out for a massive fee when Wesley Fofana went for 75, when, you know, Josko Gvardiol went for 80 recently, who are similar ages, similar profiles to Jarrad Branthwaite. And why should Everton sell for 40? So let's say that they don't sell for 40. The reports in Germany, from Sky Germany, Plettenberg, are that Bayern Munich want £40 million for Matthijs de Ligt, which is insane value. For me, I just can't believe that value. I almost think that valuation feels made up. Like, was it only 2 years ago he joined Bayern Munich for 80 million euros? He's still only 24 years old. It feels like Matthijs de Ligt has been around for ages, like decade, but he hasn't. Of course, he just broke through that young, 17 years old, when he was captaining Ajax, of course, in the Europa League. Many people will remember him as that sort of battle-hardened young centre-back. And when he went to Juventus, there were question marks asked of him, weren't there? Was he able to take over the reins from Chiellini and Bonucci? There were times when certain sects of the Italian football community had kind of written him off as, he's not good enough to take over from Chiellini and Bonucci. And then he had a real comeback season, didn't he, where he captained the club at times, he looked like their best defender, he was an absolute monster, and was then sold to Bayern Munich, who paid a huge fee for him, and he's looked pretty solid. He's looked really solid for Bayern Munich. I don't understand why he hasn't got more minutes last season. I think it was just 16 starts. Eric Dyer put up 13 starts in half a season there. Kim Min-jae had more minutes than him. Deo Upamecano had more minutes than him. And for me, Matthijs de Ligt's the best defender of any of them. He's shown leadership qualities. He's excellent on the ball. You know, pass completion 94%, 6 progressive passes a game. He's attempting nearly 75 passes a game. He's a threat in both boxes. He's like 6'3". It makes so much sense for Manchester United. He's worked with Erik Ten Hag in the past. We know that is a route Erik Ten Hag has followed classically over the last few years, signing players that he trusts and can go to and say, yeah, okay, you're the guy for me. I've worked with you before. His injury record isn't spotless, but he's only once missed more than a month through injuries. So they're not major injuries, and that month-long period he missed, or I think it was actually 90 days he missed, so 3 months, was with that shoulder problem. I think he dislocated his shoulder and had to have a couple of surgeries on it. But he hasn't had major ACL problems or major tendon problems. I think he had a bit of a ligament issue earlier this season with Bayern Munich, didn't he? But overall, for a 24-year-old who's been playing for 7 years, it's not too bad. And I just think his quality on the ball, his defensive ability, but more so his mentality, leadership and attitude would be really good for Manchester United. I like the thought of Matthijs de Ligt partnering Lisandro Martinez. Yeah. That's a really solid back pairing, good on the ball and aggressive enough to play in a high line.
Definitely. And both spent time in an Ajax system, you know, both played under Ten Hag, as you rightly point out. It felt exactly. It feels like last season that Tuchel, because every press conference he'd compliment Dyer's organisation and his leadership. Yeah. It felt like maybe he didn't think Upamecano, De Ligt, Kim and Jay were really offering enough control and communication in there. But I mean, De Ligt, I think, as you rightly point out, he was much maligned during his one season at Juve, and then by the end of it, I think people were quite sad to see him go. And it was interesting, you know, I saw Chiellini doing one of those this or that's in like a vertical video, like which defender to pick. Everyone's been doing it this Euros, and he had De Ligt really high along that as well. So he clearly rates him as well. I think he'd be an excellent player, and Branthwaite and De Ligt in one summer would be amazing. But the only thing that comes back to is the funds, isn't it? I'd personally rather sign De Ligt, if I'm totally honest. Given his experience, given the level he's shown in the past, I think Branthwaite's a bigger risk at that fee, even with all his potential. I just also like having a right-sided centre-back and a left-sided centre-back as well. But I can see the attraction of Branthwaite as well.
Yeah, I just think if the Todibo move isn't going to happen, and that was reportedly, you know, sort of 30, 35 million, is the extra 5 to 10 million on Matthijs de Ligt worth it? Yeah, I think it is, especially when you look at a market where you're seeing £70 million wanted for Jared Branthwaite. It's a decent fee, 40 to 45 million pounds for Matthijs de Ligt. Nice.
I've got Liverpool and Villa next. I think Villa's slightly more interesting than Liverpool, if I'm totally honest. Although, new era at Liverpool, I'm excited to tell you my suggestion for that too. It's all going on at Villa. We've already touched on the Maatsen deal. Douglas Luiz is apparently close to joining Juventus. It seems like the players that are coming the other way seem to change hour by hour, so I don't want to speculate too much on that, because by Sunday it could be a very different story. But I think Douglas Luiz is a big loss. Although, having spoken to a lot of Villa fans this week, he wasn't necessarily one of their most crucial players by the end. I think he was a little bit more inconsistent in the second half of the season as well. But I think they do need to sign another midfielder with defensive capabilities, because I love Ross Barkley last year at Luton, but he had, I think it was the 8th lowest tackle success rate in the entirety of Europe's top 5 leagues. The only Premier League player with the worst tackle success rate was Nicholas Jackson, who's obviously doing a harassing role, a pressing role. Players will fly past him, but for a central midfielder to have a tackle success rate of around 28% is really, really worrying. So Ross Barkley's not being signed, understandably, for his defensive sort of assuredness. I think he'll much more likely rotate with Tielemans or potentially even McGinn, although McGinn does play those wide roles more effectively as well. So I think they need a more defensive-minded midfielder. And having heard your earlier suggestion about Leeds, I'm not sure Leeds fans will be delighted with me, but I think they should have a look at Ethan Ampadu. I really do. I think he's a top player. The amount of experience he's gained at this young age as well. He's got 50 caps for Wales already. He's played for Sheffield United in a relegation battle. That was a bit of a disaster, but he spent time in Italy with Venezia and Spezia. Last year at Leeds, I think he was captaining them at points. He played the most minutes out of anyone in that squad. He's a pretty impeccable passer, can play at centre-back as well as defensive midfield. And I think he's got a huge future in the game. I really like his development. Yes, Leeds will be so determined to keep hold of him, because you look at the quality coming down from the Premier League last season and the quality going up from the Championship in Leicester and Ipswich and Southampton. Leeds will be the standout favourites, I think, for the Championship next year. So they won't want to lose such a key player. But if Villa come in with a 25, 30 million pound offer, and Leeds only spent, I think it was 7 million pounds on him to sign him permanently from Chelsea last summer after all those loans, I think they're going to have to look at that offer with Leeds' financial situation as well. So Ethan Ampadu to Villa, I like it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with Ethan Ampadu, isn't it? Because he broke through at Exeter City so young, didn't he? Of course, I think he was starting in the first team. 14, 15 maybe? It was like
as young as that?
I think 15, he might have made his debut for Exeter City and then got that major move to Chelsea. And a lot like a lot of the Chelsea youth nowadays, they've struggled to make impacts in the first team and had to kind of leave subsequently. But he is exceptional on the ball, and he is definitely a character. I was at the Leeds training ground earlier this year, and he is clearly the leader of the group.
Really?
Everybody turns to him despite his age. He is
only 23.
Very, very mature, and the way he speaks is excellent. He's got a big personality, and I could see him playing back in the Premier League quickly. I like the shout of Ethan Ampadu.
Thank you very much. I thought it was my best of the episode as well. And he can also perform a bit of a backup role next season to Boubacar Kamara, but obviously with the Champions League, with all the cup competitions, there's loads of games flying around. Increased Champions League as well. There is going to be so many games for Villa to contend with what is a fairly shallow squad in certain areas. I think Ampadu would be a good pickup.
Okay. My next one for Newcastle is Rogue.
Newcastle.
I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, doesn't really hit the £30 million fee exactly. Might be a little bit more than that. But I think 35 million, 40 million, definitely.
Okay.
And I'm going to suggest Jadon Sancho.
Nice.
For
I
Newcastle.
don't mind that.
I think Newcastle on that right-hand side is the spot where you can upgrade. At centre-back, they were clearly looking at Tosin, so they want a centre-back. They got Lloyd Kelly through the door as well, but it looks like they want a right-sided centre-back, right? Presumably Lloyd Kelly's come in more to fill that Sven Botman space with him being seriously injured at the start of the season. Not expected to come back until like November time. So he's going to probably fill the left-sided centre-back role. You stick with Shah on the right-sided centre-back. He's one of the most underrated players in the Premier League, but they want to improve in that zone. I still think that right-wing role where Almiron occupies is an upgradable area. I know in 2022-2023 under Eddie, he was exceptional, wasn't he? Went through that real purple patch. I think he finished the season on 11 goals. But last season felt like... It didn't feel like a low. It felt like a return to kind of where Almiron is as a player, which is excellent off the ball, but doesn't provide enough on the ball to give attacking threat to Newcastle against teams that are going to sit in lower blocks. And I think that's where Newcastle have now got to go. Newcastle as a transition side, excellent, amazing pressers, but they are now a team competing for top 4. How do they break down low blocks? I think that's where they take their next step, and it's not an easy step to make because a lot of the players they've got are super transitional, very fast on breaks. Anthony Gordon, excellent on a break. Harvey Barnes, excellent in transition. Isak, excellent in transition. Even in the midfield, players like Longstaff, Joe Willock, really good in big spaces. I wonder if they could do with adding a player who, when you're playing a low block, just has that little key piece of creative. And I don't think you should write Jadon Sancho off from being that player. He's still only 24 years old. We saw it at Borussia Dortmund. He still has X factor, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he absolutely does. That game against PSG where he completed, was it 11, 12 dribbles?
So I think it was the highest in the Champions League
was
game
remarkable.
Since Messi in 2009.
Yeah, and while he hasn't been ultimately consistent at Borussia Dortmund, a lot of people will point to the fact that there have been ups and downs, and it's easier to kind of hide to a level at Borussia Dortmund. If you have 2 bad games in a row, it's kind of okay, nobody's talking about it. It's Borussia Dortmund. Other players have either made up for it or not. Whereas at a big club, or it's like a super club, because Dortmund are also a big club, like a Manchester United, like the spotlight, you have 2 bad games. It's like, state of Jadon Sancho again, isn't it? I think Newcastle, he could potentially fly a little bit more under the radar there, and he could be an absolute star. His dribble numbers are still off the charts. He progresses the ball lovely, but he's so intelligent with his passing. It's an underrated facet of Jadon Sancho's game, his ability to create in that sort of half space, come inside and create almost like a number 10 at times.
Yeah. He actually had a couple of good games playing in the sort of central areas for Man United, I remember.
Yeah,
as well.
Absolutely. I mean, 6 progressive passes a game, 6 progressive carries a game, nearly 4 take-ons a game. He still has the individual sort of cage footballer style ability. And I think Newcastle could make a bit of a statement here.
Yeah.
He might go to be an absolute world beater. If that's the case, is it worth gambling at 35, 40 million pounds, which is probably what United would accept for him, He's not going to come back into that fold now. Erik ten Hag is staying at the club. He's going to get a new contract, Erik ten Hag, so that means Jadon Sancho is definitely going to be out. The only question mark I would have is whether or not he fits into Eddie Howe's off-the-ball style. This high-pressing, super energy doesn't feel the most Jadon Sancho-esque style.
Dortmund in their prime, back in his early days, were probably playing a similar-ish system.
And I just think that a fresh start probably wouldn't have to move house. Like, he could stay in where he is and just almost show United up a bit. I think there would be part of him that wants to be like, I'm going to show United up. I'm going to show Erik ten Hag what he's missing.
There's definitely big cult hero potential there.
There's big upside.
You're playing in front of 60,000 every week. Newcastle, huge atmosphere. Still competing in Europe. I like it.
No Europe this season, which might be a bit of a tough one because obviously United knocked them down. But I think £35 million might get the job done on Jadon Sancho.
Eddie Howe, get involved. Guys, I hoop that you can still see me and I haven't gone completely translucent because there is a beaming ray of sun.
Move over a bit. Move a chair over, bro.
There we go. Right, let's talk about Liverpool. This is my final suggestion. So we did 4 clubs each. We will do other clubs in the Premier League, but for this episode, it just made sense to focus on the big dogs. Let's talk Liverpool. Now, Liverpool's a really interesting one, I think. You're looking at Van Dijk getting a bit older, but Kwanzaa's emergence last year means that I don't think they necessarily need to sign a centre-back despite Matip going, because they've still got Gomez, they've still got Konate there, Tsimikas, Robertson. Maybe you're looking at a Robertson replacement in a few years. Is Tsimikas that long-term guy? I'm not quite sure. Conor Bradley emerging at right-back. That's really good for Trent if he's going to go into midfield. That's a big question that needs to be answered as well. Defensive midfield, I think, is where most people would look at. But You've still got Endo, Bajcetic, whose name I can never pronounce correctly. He's coming back from injury as well. McAllister can play that role. There's going to be less, because they're probably going to play a 4-2-3-1. You need to get Jones in there. Szoboszlai will probably play further forward. But I think their midfield options aren't even too bad, despite Thiago's departure. One of the more, I suppose it's maybe a little bit dull, but they do need to sign potentially a backup goalkeeper. Kelleher has been strongly linked with Celtic at the moment as a Joe Hart replacement. That'd be an amazing move for him. I think he was excellent last year in the games that he did play. So they need to sign a backup goalkeeper. Really difficult task to sign backup goalkeepers, because they are, as the word suggests, going to spend most of the time on the bench. They need to be good enough to replace Alisson effectively, but not so good enough that it creates a story that they're not playing, a la Ramsdale and Rara at the start of last season, although Arteta was vindicated with that. So I'm going to go with Lucas Chevalier of Lille. Now, Ligue 1 fans will be worried about this, because he has big potential. He is Mike Magnon's sort of heir apparent, really, although they are not too dissimilar in age. But he's played so well for Lille over the last 2 seasons. He's a Lille Academy graduate, then had to go to Valenciennes in Ligue 2 to make his breakthrough there. Over the last 3 seasons, he's twice saved over 5 expected goals. He's never had a negative XG season. His save percentage has always been above 74%. That's really solid. Even last year, kept 15 clean sheets. That was 6th in Europe. He saved 2 of the 5 penalties he faced as well. The one issue that he has, which I was reading about rather than spotted myself, is he does have a tendency to hold his near post when a ball gets cut back, which is apparently what a lot of young goalkeepers do when they're sort of breaking through, because they want to know their whereabouts and where the shot's coming from. But it does often mean he's slow to get across on cutbacks, which is maybe something that he could have a look at. But this is a really high potential goalkeeper. The only issue with that is Lille finished 4th in France, which is a Europa League spot. He's breaking into the French national setup. I think he's going to the Olympics with Thierry Henry. Does he want to play second fiddle to Alisson, who is still only 31 and will probably play till 33, 34? That's why it's such a difficult role to fulfill. But I think he'd be a good pickup for anyone looking for a goalkeeper this summer, which is why I wanted to suggest him. But
that's a brave suggestion, man. Alisson.
He's got. You do need to look at it. Yeah, Kelleher leaving. They need to sign a backup. They've also been linked with Anthony Patterson, who plays for my club, Sunderland. He's got a steep learning curve if he wants to be good enough to replace Alisson, even if it's only for cup games. So, yeah, it's a difficult one to fulfill. But Chevalier, if you're looking for a goalkeeper, any club this summer, consider him.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it, Liverpool? Because obviously Arne Slot was announced, officially confirmed this week. And, he was quite bullish, I thought, in some of his comments about, we will be working with was it Richard Hughes, I think is his name? I've had multiple conversations with Richard Hughes. I wasn't expecting him to be as involved in recruitment as it seems like he wants to be. So it'd be interesting to see what he does to that side.
If you were looking at Liverpool, where would be... Is it the defensive midfield?
Yeah, probably. I think that
have a look at Angelo Stieler.
I do think Bajcetic coming back is going to play a big role this season in their thinking. He's so highly thought of at the club, and obviously played barely any football last season because of that injury. So his return to form will be key. I also do think they'll be looking on that right wing slot. I know that Harvey Elliott can kind of play out there. Do I think he's the most natural right winger? Not really. He's kind of a cross between a 10 and a right winger, I find at times, Harvey Elliott, and I don't think he worked perfectly in a midfield 3, so potentially a right winger as well, because Mo Salah might leave the club, even though David Ornstein has said it's unlikely he will, and it's now feels more like Mo Salah's going to stay than he's going to leave. Eventually they've got to sign a Mo Salah replacement. The issue is you're just not going to be able to do that really with £30 million.
No.
So yeah, I don't hate the goalkeeper shout. He's just never going to play, is he? Although Alisson did spend half season last year injured.
This is true. It's such a difficult role, backup keeper, to fulfil, as I pointed out, for those reasons. And it has created issues at Arsenal, or at least a talking point, having 2 goalkeepers of relatively similar ability. So I'm not saying Chevalier is anywhere close to Alisson at the moment, but with game time, he does have really, really high potential.
My last team's Arsenal then.
Yes, the Gooners.
Yeah, and look, it's easy to see where Arsenal need to upgrade, which I think is a good sign. Defensive midfield is probably going to be a key recruitment area for them this summer. It feels like Thomas Partey is going to leave the club. Jorginho is going to be kept, by all accounts. So you want to add one more player in there. I don't think they can do that with a 30 million budget. I think if I was them, I would go and spend that on Frenkie, or I'd go and spend that on Bruno Guimaraes, and I would just go lights out now that I'm not going for Benjamin Sesko on that position. So my thinking...
Frankie's injury might stop that, though, I suppose.
Yeah, but I don't think it was...
I don't think it's super serious.
it was question marks whether he was going to make it to the Euros, wasn't it? So surely by the start of the season, he will be fit. I just don't think you can do that for £30 million. So my answer for the £30 million role is going to be a Bukayo Saka backup.
Love it.
I just think that is needed. He plays too much football, Bukayo Saka. Yeah. He gets kicked every game. That's the best way to stop him, people have found, is just to boot him off the pitch, seemingly, which is obviously unfair. But they've got cover on the left wing, haven't they? They've got Martinelli, who some might argue is upgradable.
Didn't have a great year.
Didn't have a great year. They've got Leo Trossard, who is obviously fabulous in there. They've got two strikers now in Gabby Jesus and Kai Havertz. But it doesn't feel like they've got anybody to play that role alongside Bukayo Saka. It feels like a bit of a blind spot. You know, Fabio Vieira can play out there.
I think they wanted him to be that guy.
I'm not... I don't know. Not totally sold. So I'm going to suggest Johan Bakayoko at PSV. The reports that €40 million is the kind of asking price for him, so slightly above the £30 million mark we were working with. And he fits for me a little bit like, you know, we've seen Jeremy Doku go to Manchester City and have big impacts off the bench. It feels like when Arsenal are struggling and maybe Bukayo Saka picks up an injury or they just can't break down a low block, a player like Johan Bakayoko, who is throwing up freakish numbers of take-ons, freakish numbers of dribbles, he's unbelievably fast, is just a game-changing option. He's very different to anything Arsenal possess right now, in that he's got this sort of manic ability to go past people. And yes, it's in the Eredivisie, but I think we might see it in spits and spots at the Euros for Belgium. He's going to have impact at the tournament, I believe. He's had impact in the Europa League as well. We saw him against Arsenal, didn't we? Be a bit of a standout player at times. I know that Xavi Simons was really the guy, but Bakayoko's 1v1 ability is so insane. And I do believe, you know, I think it was 11 goals last season, so he's got a bit of output at the end of it. I do believe that his physicality could take Arsenal to the next level coming off the bench. And he's still, 21, 22? So he's got enough time to grow as well. He would be a great backup to Bukayo Saka, a rotational option. Doesn't feel like he's the kind of player that would come in and go, I've got to play every week here. I've got to play every single game here in an Arsenal team that are competing for the Champions League and the Premier League. So if he was to get 20 appearances a season, I think those would be good numbers for a 21-year-old at one of the world's best sides. I think it makes a lot of sense for Bakayoko to go to Arsenal.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, you saw him coming off the bench in their opening game versus Slovakia, which obviously didn't go Belgium's way, but by the time this goes live, you'd have seen them in their second game. I think he's got a huge future. And you look at how his numbers exploded this year compared to last year as well. He's really trending upwards. Yeah,
really trending upwards. And other positions at Arsenal are difficult to fill for a value budget. They've got such a good squad now that the only way they can improve really is to sign superstar players and push players that were really good in their first team to become squad players.
Like a Gabriel Jesus scenario.
Potentially with the Gabriel Martinelli scenario, where he looked like an absolute world beater, had a bit of a stagnant season. Do you now go out and sign a lights out superstar left winger so Gabriel Martinelli becomes your player that competes with him for that role? Maybe.
You also look at Jurrien Timber coming back. That strengthens your left back. It strengthens your centre back options as well. That's
the reason I didn't go for Jarell Harto or David Hanko, who some people were suggesting. There was a lot of chat about, we need to sign a left-sided centre back to cover for Gabriel, or to play as a left back, because obviously Zinchenko feels like he's maybe Arsenal 1.0 and they're at Arsenal 2.0 now. But is that not just Jurrien Timber? Missed the whole season. I think if he had been fit, he'd have started at left back. He offers cover at centre back. Kivior can play at left back and at centre back. Tomiyasu can play both flanks and at centre back.
They've got options.
For me, I would focus away from the left back role and just trust Jurrien Timber in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want your difference maker to be as fresh for as much of the big games at the end of the season. And Saka actually didn't finish the season as strongly as he was in other parts of it. And I think that's partly down to tiredness and the fact Arteta rarely takes him off before 80 minutes, and even then it's quite rare. So I think strengthening right wing is crucial. All
right, there we have it. So those are the first 8 teams we're going to do. You can probably barely see Doogie here because he's so bright. We will do the other teams in the Premier League in the future. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. We'll see you later. Bye.